Hi, everyone. I'm Natalie Gochner, and this is Both Sides of the Aisle. I represent the political center and have on the political left Shireen Gorbani.
Hello, and hey, listeners. Hope you're doing okay.
And how about on the political right, my friend John Dougal?
Hey, it's great to be with you. Happy summertime.
Yeah, and it's hot.
It is hot.
And there's a lot of wildfire. My goodness.
It looks like the whole state's on fire.
I was hiking, in this past week, and it's smoggy up there. You spend a lot of effort to climb 2,000 vertical feet, and then it's
terrible to breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't think that's going to happen or whatever.
I know.
But it's also pretty smoky in Washington, D.C. What do I mean by that? This Iran-U.S., these negotiations, they're getting somewhere. J.D. Vance playing a really significant role.
We're just chasing our tail.
I will say this. I spoke to a Middle Eastern expert, policy expert, National Security Council type guy, former staffer in the past week, and he really convinced me that we had to go after Iran hard. He convinced me that.
So he's a hawk.
But he also convinced me that the way we were doing it matters.
Yeah.
And how are we doing?
Sound like me in the political middle, right? Because basically he was making the case that Iran has done so many things to destabilize the region, to hurt and kill friendlies and our own national patriots and whatnot, and at the same time their own people. And then at the same time, you can't go do something like this without an international coalition, and without having a drone strategy, and without having a Strait of Hormuz strategy. So yeah, that's kind of where I was.
And at the end of the day, will we be better off or worse off than where we were before we started?
How do you understand the status of the current talks, John?
Well, we signed an MOU to have more discussions that would take 60 days or more. Even the president was saying they'll likely take more than 60 days. And if you look at the promises that are being represented, we'll address this, and this. Okay, it sounds like the deal ultimately will be better off than where we're at. But that's a whole lot of hope and prayer and dreams. I don't trust Iran. It's in their interest to delay and stall, and they've done that for years and decades. And therefore, I don't have a lot of faith in these negotiations, because I just think they'll stall and stall.
Shireen, 18 hours of negotiations in Switzerland.
I got to say that's nothing for the Iranians. They can go a lot longer than that.
They can go thousands of years.
Thousands of years, millennia. I think the thing about this that I would say is concerning is I agree with you, John. I think that we'll end up in a place, I'm hopeful that we end up in a better place than we are, but not necessarily than we were even just a few years ago. It sounds like the constructs of the negotiation around nuclear materials are going to be similar to that of the JCPOA, if not a little bit weaker. It sounds like we don't really have any agreement on proxies, so who will be enacting violence on behalf of Iran in the region. I think for me, most centrally, the Iranian people are not under a regime that is more forgiving or more progressive than the one that they were living under. In fact, it's worse. And we're now talking about releasing billions of dollars, huge amounts of money, so much that it's incomprehensible, I think, kind of to the average Utahn, back to
this
Iran.
Development fund of $300 billion.
$300 billion, right. And when I think there's like a sort of a petty part of me that just wants to scream about how often people said that Obama signed a deal that just involved taking plane loads of cash to Iran. This is that times, first of all, that was incorrect, but this really is that.
But in the Obama administration, what were the numbers? 1.5 billion, I think was what was something like that.
Double, right?
No, this is
well,
you're 200
right.
times.
You're right. And we're just not going to hear about that. And that makes me insane.
Yeah. Well, do you guys want to go to Cuba for a minute?
Let's do it.
I'm hearing that they're making some progress. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of posturing by the U.S., but it sounds like Cuba is making some adjustments. The way I have it is sweeping economic changes that could lead to the privatization of much of Cuba's socialist economy. This would be a good thing in my mind. I remember being in Havana one time. I've only been there once, but being there and seeing a bridge that literally went to nowhere. Imagine a big interstate that goes up on a bridge and it just stops. And that sounds like a socialist economy to me.
Oh, really? I feel like we got a few of those in the United States these days.
Yeah, you get some corruption and whatnot, but it's this notion that a planned economy is a wasteful economy.
Well, that's one of the key things. Adam Smith talked about the invisible hand, but this is where our collective insights and perspectives all weigh into determining prices and resource allocations and so forth. And is it perfect? No, but it's a whole lot better than pretending like there's somebody or some collective that can centrally plan even the most modest of activities, let alone an entire economy.
Yeah. I'm all about engagement with Cuba. I think the more we connect and talk and integrate, the better it is. And I'm not sure we're integrating when we're like threatening them.
Correct.
You know, but I'd love to have much more travel between the two countries and all of that kind of thing. You know, when you're in Miami and you're traveling on a flight to Havana, you watch the loading of the luggage. It's an experience because they're taking mountain bikes and TV sets, flat screens. You're just seeing all these bubble-wrapped commodities that they can't get in Cuba that they're taking back. Yeah. And so instead of seeing suitcases,
puddle jumper of 90 miles.
You see commodities that are bubble wrapped.
And I'll say it's really surprising. I spent New Year's week in Key West. And you can see Havana. Like, you can see the lights of Cuba.
Isn't that something? People don't realize that.
And to think about how close we are and the fact that we've not managed to create a less hostile situation in a place where we can see the lights, to me, is really, it's disorienting.
And it's a beautiful place, and it's beautiful people, and the food and the art is so rich, the music. It's a special place if we could just get government right.
Or you can go to Puerto Rico instead and get parts of the beauty and the culture just right there in our own U.S.
I will say we could probably both take notes at this point.
Okay, yeah. Reflecting pool.
Okay.
This is something else.
To reflect.
Go ahead, Shireen, lay into it.
So I think the thing for me that's so upsetting about this is we're talking about a no-bid contract to someone who did not have the experience or expertise to do this, who is a crony of Trump, who received millions of dollars, our taxpayer dollars, to make the reflecting pool worse than it was before. Ducks are dying. People are being arrested. At this point, more people in the United States have been arrested for touching the algae in the reflecting pool than have been for participating in the corruption and horrific crimes related to the Epstein scandal. This is, to me, just like an unbelievable representation of how this administration just wants to cell phone. How about you?
Well, it doesn't make sense to me. You've got this Olympic canoe racer. He's 67-year-old David Hearn, arrested, handcuffed, held for 5 hours because he was stopping by the pool and touched the water and they wanted to question him. I don't know. It seems over the top, John.
It's over the top.
Well, we also have something like 5 people vandalized it. The other thing I will note,
leave it to President Trump to turn this, this national treasure into a politicized pool.
Well, one of the other key things is I understand the filtration system needs to get replaced, but it seems like true to any, doesn't matter what administration, it's like, okay, we only do half the job. We fix, painting or repairs of the pool, but we don't actually fix the filtration system at the same time. I can't explain it. But a lot of folks go there and they're expecting to see, this is America. If they don't see anything else, they're thinking DC represents America.
Yeah.
And part of the monuments and the mall is a representation of America. And so that's where we want to show our best face.
Right. And I think it's a perfect representation of where we are right now.
We've been in Switzerland. We've been in Cuba. We've been in Washington, D.C. We've been in Key West.
Yes.
How about going to Georgia? The GOP.
I heard the devil went down to Georgia.
Yeah. I think that's also true.
The GOP has rejected Trump's push to redraw legislative maps ahead of the 2028 elections. This is a big deal in my mind. This Republican Governor Brian Kemp, he had proposed a special session to do this, and it looks like it's not going to happen.
So I think Brian Kemp is interesting. So it does sound like he proposed the session to do this, as you mentioned. But he has been a person who occasionally has stood up to Trump and has stood up for the voters who he represents in Georgia. So I'm really interested to see how this all plays out, but proud of them for not giving in.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like there's a dialogue in the state going on between the Republicans and black voters. And the black voters are saying our votes matter, and it's causing enough of a pressure point for the Republicans that they're going to just back out.
Yeah.
Make sense? John, screwworm outbreak. What do you know about screwworm?
I don't know anything about screwworm. I know Shireen, an episode or two back, mentioned this, but no, I've never got one that I know of.
So this goes back to Doge. They cut the funding for this. Now you're in Texas, and it's so bad in some counties that they're declaring a state of disaster.
I mean, the whole thing. Doge isn't the fault of everything and stuff. I would argue, the fact that we even had the federal government in the middle of this probably weakened healthcare in different places around the nation.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because really what this was a multi-level monitoring of how beef comes into our country as part of it. So not only what's happening within our borders, but also monitoring sales coming in from Mexico and South America. And there are efforts, right, to curtail the screwworm by investing in research around flies. And that is a huge part of what was cut. And my understanding is the cut was about $15 million. Just a reminder from just a few minutes ago, we spent 14 on the reflecting pool. That is, a little sweetheart deal that's going nowhere. But this amount of money really was minimal when you think about the costs and the ramifications of disrupting our beef industry.
And it was eradicated for 6 decades. Yeah. So I don't know. There seems to be some sort of correlation there, whether there's a causation, I don't know.
Now we get to pay $1 billion to fix it.
Hey, let's take a short break, and then we're going to talk about some fun local news. Natalie Gochner with John Dougal and Shireen Gorbani. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Both Sides of the Aisle on UPR. We love to hear from our listeners like you. If you would like to send us a comment, email bsotapodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that's bsotapodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.
Shireen Gorbani on the left.
John Dougal on the right.
And Natalie Gochner in the Political Center. You are listening to Both Sides of the Aisle. We have a fun conversation every week. And right now we're going to talk about the GOP and the lawmakers that want to change the board that okayed the Stratus Data Center.
Yeah.
Wow. This is 2 Republicans. They're going after it. I don't know. It seems like every election, the data centers get in time. Meaning every campaign, whether you're a House seat, a Senate seat, whether you're a local school board, anything.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Well, I guess I would just say this is, to me, a crystallization of a broader sentiment that our representation in this state is out of touch with people's needs, concerns, and fears. And when we have people who are willing to stand on the right side of that and really understand the ways that government overreach, I know John and I agree on this, really impacts people's lives. When we think about the way that, I firmly believe, I think we share this belief as well, that people deserve representatives who communicate to them ahead of time accurately and in a way that makes sense to them. All of these kinds of features of just good public service are sometimes fraying a little bit in our Utah politic right now. And I think people taking the opportunity around data centers to put a focus on that is good.
I think this is a little different than data centers, but I think, for example, this case deals with MIDA. And so what is the role of MIDA? For many years, It's been pushed to invest and develop areas around Hill Air Force Base or for military purposes. And so then it seems to be stretched a little bit further and a little bit further. In Sundance, they're building some condos and a resort. Yes, it's going to help some disabled vets in the summer, but primarily it's going to be used for skiing in the winter. Okay, and so you start to ask the question, well, how much is this really in support of the military and our veterans, or is it really to assist developers? And then you get out to the data center where I think some folks are saying, well, exactly where is the military connection when it comes to this data center versus what MIDA has been represented to perform over the years? So
these are big election times with, midterm primaries happening and all these sorts of things. You get a lot of fingers pointed. And Ben McAdams running for office is being challenged by his challengers about where he's getting his money. People are worried about out-of-state money, the Think Big PAC. This is prominent AI executives. And then also the notion of some, I guess, American Israel Public Affairs Committee PAC.
Yeah.
You guys, this bother you at all?
What bothers me is how money works in our politics. And unfortunately, this is the name of the game. You have to be able to raise big dollars to win. I'll be curious to see the outcome of this race, but I will also say, I feel like John and I often have disagreement here, but where I feel like maybe I'm speaking for you. I don't mean to, but you don't believe that necessarily contributions mean that people will act a certain way. I think it will be determined. We have to see what happens when people get this kind of influence in their races.
Usually is how they've behaved in the past is why contributions then flow.
Yeah.
From my perspective, the key problem is government has too much power, and so therefore power attracts money. And so if you want to limit money in campaigns, you limit the power of the federal government or the power of the government that you're dealing with that election cycle.
Are you on do you feel like we should end Citizens United? Is that a position?
No,
I
you're
into
that,
it.
No, I think that's fully supported. I just think what attracts money is you look at the federal government, it has way too much power. So therefore more and more money accumulates to try and influence that power.
Yeah.
And if you want to reduce money in politics, you reduce the power of that government.
Interesting.
We had a big land sale take place in the last week. This is our State Trust Lands Administration, commonly referred to as SITLA.
School trust land.
Yeah, trust land. Sorry, you're right.
It's full largely the school kiddies.
Yeah, and we can talk more about that history, but they sold a big chunk of land in the Book Cliffs to our Division of Wildlife Resources for Wilderness Preservation. It's really takes care of some prime hunting, fishing, wildlife conservation areas. Off air, I told John I really like this. He goes, I don't. Why are you on it, Shireen?
I mean, I like it.
Okay, yeah. So just for our listeners, if you think
So go back to statehood.
That's what I was going to do.
We had different little parcels that were set aside, and you didn't know exactly what was going to be valuable and what wasn't.
Yeah.
But we set aside all these parcels for schools.
The so-called checkerboard.
The checkerboard.
The blue boxes whenever you look at a land ownership map of Utah. And what the feds were basically saying is we're going to keep most of this land, but we want you to have some money to support your public schools. And so we're going to give you these, institutional trust lands. And now that's managed for the benefit of the school children. And they're under a requirement to maximize revenue for the school kids. It's not about conservation for them. And so we had to buy it. So the state had to pay the state. And that's what you don't like.
No. I didn't have a problem with the state paying the state because it's for the trust of the school kids. The problem I had is the state paying for it. Okay, what's really the benefit? Who's really going to have access? Some are concerned that this is going to be for wealthy hunters or the ones that are really going to access this land and not run-of-the-mill day in and day out Utahns. And so I have skepticism about what will really materialize at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And to what extent this is really preserved for the environmental benefit of Utahns versus an exclusive class that gets to recreate on it in a certain form.
Yeah. So I think my concern is the same, but with an alternative kind of case. Like I am concerned that when we put these lands in private hands, they become even more exclusive, if not completely restricted to Utahns. So I'm not sure what the alternative is other than an arrangement like this, which to me seems like a guarantee for more Utahns to have access.
Well, and one of the things that I like is, and some people have concerns with this, but if private groups want to buy up land to conserve for conservation purposes, I don't have a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Hey, so we also have, and I just want to say from my point of view on this one, I just really appreciate land conservation. You get one chance to get it right. This area is the largest roadless area in the lower 48, and I think it's the highest and best use is to preserve it for future.
And have you spent time in that area?
A little bit.
Yeah.
On the outskirts. It's kind of hard to penetrate because it's roadless.
It is.
But it's a special place in the lower 48.
Yeah.
So, okay, I want to also talk about Great Salt Lake and our Utah delegation trying to make sure we get our money for this lake. You remember how our great governor went and met with the president and the president tweeted out, we got to make the lake great again. And then he put $1 billion in his budget for it. Everyone knew that wouldn't come all at once, that it'll be incremental and come in pieces. And now we're talking about this first piece, $4.5 million that would come in to help with man-made barriers to improve natural water flow. This all deals with the Stansbury Bay Improvement Project. Okay, that's a lot. John and I can actually be excited because we're going to have a special program on the Great Salt Lake.
Yes, you are.
So we're going to learn more. But you guys want to say anything about what's happening with the splash of cash for the Great Salt Lake?
I would just say that I'm grateful for investments in this. I hope that it's incredibly transparent and effective use of money. I don't think that's necessarily the history of how we do things in Utah, but I am hopeful because it is such a critical piece of our environmental infrastructure.
And I get the Great Salt Lake is probably a benefit greater than just Utah, but there's a whole big part of me that looks and says, okay, we keep begging for more and more money from the federal government. We're expecting our congressional delegation to go deliver money and And I just have concerns with the broad scope of that and the amount of debt we have and spending money we really don't have. So
Yeah, okay.
I'd rather we focus on what can we do here in Utah to really help improve the Great Salt Lake.
Yeah. You two, I've been talking openly with friends, when you just start talking about public affairs, public policy, politics, about what's going to happen in this state in the next 12 to 18 months as we start working towards the 2028 gubernatorial election. And it's starting to heat up a little bit. Why is that? It's because I think our governor's been pretty clear he's not going to run. And by about February, the candidates have to start coming out of the woodwork and start doing their thing. Our lieutenant governor, Deidre
in
Henderson.
January in a year and a half, they have to officially announce and sign up. So,
Yeah. Okay. So our lieutenant governor, Deidre Henderson, I keep seeing her in the news, being on things nationally, doing a lot of work in election work. So I think she's got to be thinking that she's going to enter the fray.
Wow.
Who else are you guys seeing?
Okay, that's interesting because my sense is that her courageousness suggests to me that she is not entering the fray.
Okay.
I'll be curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah.
I would have said she was a sure thing a few years ago. I don't know the status right now.
Who else are you following here?
Clearly, Jason Chaffetz has fallen all over himself to try and get in anywhere and everywhere to draw attention.
Yeah, and
I'm
he would
going
be
to say for
formidable.
some folks, the fact that he stepped down midterm, didn't want to hold the next administration accountable, caused me to question, why should I trust you to be governor when you step down as congressman?
There's a
for your own
nuance
benefit?
there. When John says didn't want to hold the next administration accountable, it's because he was like chair of the House
Oversight Committee.
And so he was going to be in the role of criticizing the incoming Republican administration.
And
That's what you're saying there.
Yeah, the job of Congress is to hold, regardless, I don't care what administration, it's your job to hold that administration accountable.
Yeah.
I hear Speaker Schultz's name bantied about.
Yeah.
As well. So,
well, it's interesting on that one. His chief of staff recently got pegged for a new role. So this is Abby
the
Osborne,
Olympics.
who's now going to work with the Utah 2034 in the Olympics. So he's got a little bit of a shakeup on his team, and he's been playing quite a leadership role for our state. So I think that's a likely one. You got to throw out some D names, Shireen.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. I don't know that I have any, but wait, who are you just talking about?
Speaker Schultz.
Schultz. Okay, but what about, I do feel like there's been a little bit of news about our Senator John Curtis. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's an interesting one, former Democrat, who is a person who seems to me like among some of the names that we've discussed, one that feels like one I could live with a little bit more. Mm-hmm. However, I don't know that the political moment that we're in Utah meets his temperament.
If we had all these Republican names, whether it's Senator Curtis, Representative Blake Moore, whether it's someone from the legislature, including our speaker.
I've even heard some people say U.S. Senator Mike Lee.
Okay. And business leaders, who might the Democrats look to, knowing that it's a far piece? Like, I don't see Ben McAdams doing this because he's going to do something he can win.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't see Mayor Mendenhall doing it because she's got other opportunities.
Okay, so I think what I would suggest is this is a moment for Utah Democrats, as it often is, to define clearly the ways in which Utahns are harmed by single party rule. And I think that it is in the interest of Utahns generally for us to have some balance in government. Mm-hmm. Now, do I think they're going to vote for a Democrat for governor? Maybe, maybe not. But I do think it would be smart for us to have some balance. And I know you've talked about a divided government. Like, for example, the last statewide Democrat that was elected, I believe, was Jan Graham as Attorney General. And to have an Attorney General that's not the same party as the governor can be a tension. Mm-hmm. But what about the state auditor? What about some of these other roles that can hold our government accountable? And I would just suggest to people that if we are tired of what's happening with neglect for our environment, the people who cannot afford to feed their families, the lack of access to health care, an environment that's spinning out of control, I mean, towns and cities on fire, great year to vote for a Democrat for governor.
One time, Governor Leavitt was having his big gala. It's the big fundraiser that they have, and I don't remember a lot of the details, but Jan Graham came to it and was part of the program.
Okay.
where they went to her on stage and they said, and now we have Attorney General Jan Graham. And she looked out at the audience and she said something like, wrong party. And it was sort of a fun thing because it was a party, a gala.
But I do think good government will rise to the top even among disagreement. Yeah. And that we could benefit from.
So I just want to ask, because I thought I heard Natalie on the short list.
Yeah, that's crazy.
In our hearts, John.
That's crazy. But there's
I
some
seem to recall our live audience.
There's
like
some
that
great
one.
non-elected officials that would be good.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'd keep an eye on it. But
yeah.
Listen, Shireen, I love what you're saying about having a check and the competition of ideas, all those kinds of things. But you got to give us some names, lady.
I don't even know. I'll start asking around. I will go to an event and I will find out who's going to do it. But I do have to say, I think that Brian King, our state party chair, represented us well in the last election. And I do think there are a number of folks, potentially people who jumped in on these congressional races, that I hope will continue to move forward.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to hear some other Republican names start bubbling up.
Yeah. 30 seconds left in the program. Anything on wildfires you guys want to add?
I would just say, I do think every single thing matters. Please check the news, check the weather alerts, and do everything you can to not contribute, whether it's fireworks or whatever.
Drones
don't be
driving
stupid with
by.
fireworks, don't park on dry weeds, yada,
Everything.
yada, yada. Just
Everything.
don't be stupid.
Yeah, that's it. We got to get through this summer. All right, everyone. Natalie Gochner with John Dougal and Shireen Gorbani. Program's produced by Anthony Scoma. Thanks, everybody, for listening.